We've had several of them built in the county. So I'd like to start out by defining what you got me. What is a barn dominium? So the definition is an open concept steel building with large square footage that combines living space and a working area. So what I thought about was giving a couple of different illustrations or different looks of how they can turn out. Now here you have one, it's just a metal building with a nice porch built on the front of it. Here's three separate buildings, three gable buildings that are put together. It appears very nice, like a regular single-family home. This one here is more of your typical barn style with a gambrel roof that you typically would go along with the meaning of a barn dominium. Looks like a barn. And here looks just like a regular single-family home, two gable roofs with attached garage. This one here is another gambrel roof. This is actually one that has been built in the rural part of the county. This is actually a side view of it. So you're not able to see the windows that were put in, but it's just a gambrel style roof. Now we treat every one of these like a single family home. So you can see by our use chart, they're allowed in both agricultural uses as well as R1 and R2 of the residential uses. So I wanted to define single and two-family residential would be as a property occupied primarily by one or more single-family dwellings, duplex dwellings. So if you break that down by dwellings, it would be any building other than a mobile home, travel trailer, camper, motorhome, or manufactured home, or portion thereof, which is designed or used as living quarters for one or more families. Now these single-family homes, we obviously will go by the state codes as well as our Unified Development Code. And I've actually given you some of our standards in our Unified Development Code in the handout that I give you. What I wanted to show here is how one is typically built out on the inside or framed up on the inside. This one here is a red iron building, which obviously most of the time these buildings meet or exceed wind codes of 120 miles an hour. Most of these will go at 150 or above as far as the wind codes go. Now, the potential concerns that we do have is these are non-typical builds in our residential areas, meaning that they don't look like a regular home that we are used to seeing. Now, this was one being built in the north end of the county. And as you can see, there were many concerns of this just being a business or a warehouse. The concerns that we got from a couple of homeowners in that area. This is the garage side of it. So this is where we wanted to see what your thoughts were as far as being built in a residential area, any concerns or any directions that you would like to take us in.
It comes to my attention, as I recall, that a young man named Brian Peters
Yes, sir.
had a very similar situation.
He actually built a manufactured home. Brian built a manufactured home. The
He
issue.
also had, I think he had a workshop.
Oh, his mom did. That's right. Yes.
He had this, and I'm trying to remember what we ended up doing with that. Apparently, we let it, this has been a good while back.
Well, I think the main argument about that was not necessarily the structure, but he was running his business
Yes.
out of that structure.
That was very true.
Yeah.
There was no question he was doing that. And he had I remember, this is from poor memory. I remember he had a designated built-off area for his residence upstairs or wherever it was in the place. I've never been in it. I've seen it. And yes, he was operating his landscaping and one other
Oh,
business
yes.
out of, so they're behind the Lowe's.
Yes. Yes.
And I know some of the
Yes.
other property owners, I can't remember what got it all fired up.
That's exactly what it was.
And what ultimately happened with it.
Well, I think I had to do a lot with the way it looked around here.
And typically, we have several of these in the rural part of the county, but you don't see them. It's only when they're built in the residential zonings, because it doesn't look like your typical home, is a lot of the concerns that community has.
And you can surely get cussed out if you let one get into a neighborhood where they think it should.
Yes.
And it talks like he's talking from personal
I'm talking
experience.
from personal experience. Yes, I am. That one he showed up there, I think the last one he showed was under construction,
What neighborhood was that in?
Hickory Bluff.
Do they not have protective covenants in there?
No.
There was no deed restrictive, no covenants at all.
So it was one that was originally a stick-built subdivision that allowed a few mobile homes in, and then mobile homes upgraded, and then right in the middle of some of the really nice ones comes this steel structure. It is
Were they trying to make it like a horse thing or?
No, it was, in my opinion, it was built for a business. I think the guy was told up front that they absolutely never get a business license. But since he's come back and won't apply for a business license, run a business out of it, right in the middle of the neighborhood.
Yes.
Am I right?
You are correct, yes, sir.
I don't doubt that predominantly people building those, their goal is to, minimize and maximize tax benefits and living expenses and everything else. So
Yes.
I guess, so apparently we have some in the county that have it. Are they grandfathered in or are they what?
We treat them as a single-family home, according to that
And they're
definition.
operating businesses out of it.
No, sir. They're only allowed to run a business if they're zoned for that particular business.
Right. Are most
That's-
of these in like AR, AF?
They are.
Okay.
Majority of them are.
But the ones that really seem controversial are in R1 zoning.
The only one we've had in that particular instance that Laney's referring to is the one we had a problem with. You'll take the roads like Devonshire off of Dover Bluff, which is typically a residential zoning, but not in a HOA per se.
Right.
That's where you're going to have the issues, the potential concerns, I should say.
What's the zoning, R1?
One and R2.
From Ken Law and 17 were to come together at Greenman. That's a barn dominium.
That's a barn dominium.
Residence. He lives
Yes.
inside of it, but he's got it was designed for a business
Yeah.
originally, but he's zoned okay there.
He is.
So what zoning would he need to be able to do that?
You're allowed to do this in the AFAR, R1 and R2.
But to run a business, you'd have to be CG.
Yeah, it's all according, that's all according to the type of business.
Okay.
It's.
Well,
you're right.
let's go down the weeds a little bit. What zonings would you need to operate any business out of? Beauty salon,
Yeah, it's all according to the type of business where, as far as our uses
that's what
go.
I'm saying, is it,
A lot of them are industrial zoned, or even you can run businesses in AF. Typically you can't run a business out of R1. You can have a home office, but you can't run a business out of it.
so to run any kind of a business, it has to at least be a AR?
AR, industrial zoning, any kind of commercial zoning,
Okay,
AF.
so if someone's building one of these barn dominiums in a R1,
They will not be allowed to run a business.
but they would be allowed to build the barn dominium.
Yes, sir.
So now are we trying to restrict barn dominiums built?
That would be for you to tell me that. It's just a potential concern that it does not, it's a non-typical build as far as the look of the housing.
I get it.
Yes.
I'm kind of thinking somebody, unless, we asked the question, the one that Laney brought up, you move into an area that, there's no HOA. You've not gotten together and voted in some deed restrictive covenants for
Right.
that area. You've not done anything to protect yourself from it. What exactly are we supposed to do?
According to our UDC, we treat this as a single-family home.
I mean, whether if you're allowing a double wide in there, I would say a barn dominium is more substantial than that. I mean, how are you gonna exclude that? So I guess, are we trying to make it where you can't build a barn dominium? We try to make it where you can't operate a business out of one unless you're in.
No, it's just the type of build. It was just brought up to be the type of build that in a residential zoning, basically.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go with it once again.
I'll give you another example. If somebody chooses to paint their house rainbow colored,
Exactly.
yes.
Right.
And, you know, you know, when you move into these type areas, you know, they got less restrictions on them. They got less fees, taxes, they're just kind of, you want to do your own thing, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And you're aware of that when you're doing that. And if you're out looking for a lot, you don't look to see if there's any deed restricted covenants. I don't know how that you can go back and cry, well, you know, I came out here and I built my $400,000 house and this guy's putting up a barn and gonna live in it. You had that right just as you did when you got there. I don't know that you can say, you can't do that if that's all, if you know. Are these, what lot sizes are these? Are these?
It can, and there are a lot of lots are non-conforming lots, so you potentially can put it on a half-acre lot, potentially.
Well, what I was asking is these places where maybe you're gonna have your own horses, if you were to be able to just have your stables downstairs and, you
You
know,
could in agricultural, yes, but not in R1, you can't.
so that's restricted there.
Yes.
So all we're looking at here is, are we gonna allow a barn-dominium to be built in a R1?
Yes, sir, or at R2, yes.
Well, to do a mobile home in a R1, that's a special use, is it not?
You know, you would have to ask for a special use, R1 or R2, but it's typically not allowed in R1 at all.
Yeah.
In R2, it's based upon the future land use.
Okay,
Yeah,
You know, using Hickory Bluff as an example is we've allowed mobile homes up there in a R1 before,
in R2, yes.
R2.
Yes, sir.
too.
So,
And there are some beautiful homes up there.
yeah,
Yes.
Beautiful homes in there.
Hickory
There's
Bluff is,
also a lot of mobile homes too.
yes.
you know, if we restrict this, we could make a, you know, barn dominium, you know, a special use in those zoning districts, but I wouldn't do it in an agricultural or agricultural forestry. I wouldn't put any restrictions.
No, I wouldn't either. But I think my thing with this one that we saw up there a while ago, do you remember the square footage of it?
I don't, do you?
I don't. It's way up there. It's humongous inside.
Yeah.
He's just living in one of those sections. He built it originally to have a business. He thinks he's gonna get away with getting a license, but we've already told him, I haven't. Zoning's told him, no, you're not gonna get a license. He was told that before he built it,
Right.
but he built it anyway. He went as far to put a swimming pool at the back of it, back there, so everybody think it's a house. But it's red iron building and it's huge, and on both sides, it's got nice residential homes. He's got a residential home there, but he built it with
so
business.
right now, he's got a red iron building with a home and a indoor basketball court.
That's basically right.
I mean, I think that's the way to regulate it, you know, kind of like we're doing, because I think it gets a real dangerous spot when we start regulating design standards. And,
Exactly.
you know, that's kind of the intention of a neighborhood, is to protect your values, have covenants, restrictions. You know, there's usually a declarant rights. You know, there's, you know, when you start talking about what a house looks like and the colors and all that stuff, you start getting into design standards.
Well, let me ask you this, these folks in these areas that's concerned about, like you said, could they not get together and come back and have some sort of deed restricted covenants for their street or their area?
I don't know if they can do it after the building starts.
I know it's been done after,
Yeah.
because I know it was done out on Kings Bay Road, where, Malin Moore, Aunt B's used to be, now I think it's a Lunchbox.
Yeah.
I know those buildings there were built and then they came back and added deed restrictive covenants, so that was fact. And the reason I know is because if you built cleaners out there and it became a problem. Because they were, you know, wanting to tell you what color you could paint it and.
You are able to go back and create a homeowners association.
Right.
Well, they didn't create a homeowner, so they just implemented all these deed restrictive covenants.
within that shopping district. I can say yes.
And
Yeah.
that, you know, and maybe this is a problem, other than having, what'd you call it, the Hickory Bluff?
Yeah, Hickory Bluff.
And is that, isn't that like a residential area, or is that a subdivision? Or
It's residential, it's also got a business up there, marina stuff.
the Hickory Bluff, oh, yeah.
Yep.
I'm like Trevor, I don't think we need to be getting into business of telling people what color they paint their houses and what kind of siding and what kind of facade they gotta have. You can't have, no, you gotta have brick, or you gotta have this. I don't think that, you know, I don't think we're in the business of that. Now, as far as operating the business, that's another matter. I'm like Ben, you know, possibly we could look at, which, you know, building this barn dominium, they could build it, there's no, we have no restrictions anywhere on it at this moment.
Now, our use chart does a great job as far as businesses, our use chart. So I think we're regulating that pretty well. When they can and cannot use, operate a business, or what zoning it may have to be.
Does our UDC mention barn dominiums?
No.
I mean, it sounds like to me, being proactive, we could at least, you know, amend it to where it mentions it under single family or something, if that's where it's fallen down, it sounds like.
Why would we mention it?
Well, you know, because it's got, you know, single family dwellings, duplexes, I don't know, does it describe what a single family dwelling is?
Yes.
Different types of.
Yes.
I mean, it may just be good language to have in there, so people that do want to build that understand where it falls under.
Well, it gets into a thing where you actually want to mention every type of build and fill up a UDC with, you know, you understand, with
Right.
just different types of names.
I think, yeah. I don't think we can, like somebody,
Anybody here has an objection to them being built in the proper place. You know, as far as the zoning meets it, and it meets the zoning requirements and everything.
And I'll tell you, it's not typical, the ones that we have had in the past, running businesses out of them. That's not a typical thing.
what do you mean?
Most people build these because of how expensive housing has gotten.
I get it. That's why I'm saying I don't know that,
Yeah, but the majority of them aren't running businesses or aren't even trying to run business. This was just a unique thing that happened in this particular instance.
well, I just don't see us regulating barn dominiums, period.
As long as it meets the zoning.
Yeah.
requirements.
Yes.
Yeah. More than we have. I mean, we've got things up there, and if you're moving into an area and you get in there and you like, well, I'm gonna get with my neighbors and, you know, we don't want something in here, then they come back and set that up beforehand, or, you know, it's like no one was restricting them on what type of home or what they put in there. I just don't, I don't know that, that puts the regulatory process on us, or you.
So say I'm out there and I got 5 acres and I've been waiting, say, all right, I put my house out, build a 1,800 square foot home out there. I come back later on and I already had forethought and said, I'm gonna put a steel building barn out there. And legally, I can do it.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't you be able to?
Well, what I'm getting at is, say that house I built up front, steel building too.
One would be treated as an accessory building, one would be treated as a single family home. Yes.
So, I mean, I look at it 2 ways. I mean, I can build a stick build shop behind there, or I can get a steel building. As long as the zoning's correct, what does it matter? I mean, I chose to live in this, out in the county, as the chairman said, less taxes, less restrictions on this side of all.
A little more freedom of movement.
You know, everybody's talking about zoning. Right now, there is no zoning restrictions on building a barn dominium. Am I correct?
Not that particular type of build.
Yeah. But there is
That's a great
restrictions
thing.
on, but there is restrictions on mobile homes.
Yes, because one reason that they have their own codes.
Yeah, that's because of the storm.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, if they don't, they very quickly, they're going to have to go in there and restripe those buildings.
Oh,
But like
absolutely.
you said, when they come in and get the plans, y'all say, look, these are the WIM requirements now, just because you looked on the internet and said you could get it for 10 grand, that's not gonna meet the
And
standard.
do note that when I say accessory buildings, I'll use the Graceland building, for instance. A Graceland building, you cannot turn into a habitable home because the plans state that it is non-habitable. It's only to
But
be
the
used.
engineering design,
Exactly.
there's no stamp that says.
Exactly. And the majority of these, all of these types of builds, they're able to turn into a single-family home per se.
Typically, like those little portable buildings, shanty houses, they just have one layer of sheathing and siding.
Exactly.
You know, it's not a substrate and a moisture barrier and all this stuff.
Exactly.
It's-
That's the reason why I wanted to mention that we still follow the state building codes
Right.
when it comes to these types of builds.
Well, even those types of buildings, you know, as well as I do, you know, people have used them for cabins and they'll go out there and they'll put them up and they'll go out there and insulate them, put some wiring in and, you know, they got them a hunting cabin or a fishing cabin or
Right,
Bill Hallett, the moon cabin, whatever.
right.
Well, there's some out there that people are living in them
Yeah.
permanent.
You talking
Now.
about the handy houses type?
Yeah.
Yes,
Do we have any of those?
yes.
Like it's, they go into.
Now, if they do take a type of an accessory building and try to turn it into a home, they have to get an engineer
To sign off
to
on.
sign off on it. But there again, they still had to meet the state building codes.
Yeah.
Yes,
We've actually had that.
We have.
We've had
Yeah.
people get the engineered
We
state
have.
to live in, but
Yeah.
majority don't. They just-
it takes a lot of money to convert them
Yeah.
to do that.
So in that case, I mean, that would really be a code enforcement issue where.
Absolutely.
you know, if there's a violation, we go out there and address it.
Well,
Absolutely.
you see it, different pictures of it and stuff, and they'll go to Home Depot and buy one of those cabin kits and think they can put it up. They can't. Yep.
Well, I don't know that, what are we to gain? And if we are gonna take action, what action options would we have?
I
Say
believe,
there's no barn dominiums anywhere? Are there only in ARAF or
I'm not sure that you would want to take that,
lot size is bigger than 3 acres or?
Well, that's why I brought up the thing, and I thought about this bunch, of just looking back for, same thing, Gary, what's the difference? You could actually have, say it's a 1,800 square foot house again, and have a 3,000
Yeah.
square foot building behind it. It's gonna dwarf your house, almost, so.
I get it. But he wants to store his motor home and his boats and
That's right.
his antique tractor collection or whatever else he's got. I mean, and I think, and people move out in those less restricted areas for that reason.
I don't think the issue is going out to those less restricted areas. It's, somebody maybe building a barn dominium in an existing subdivision that doesn't have any covenants. That might be an issue.
Like,
Like out at Hickory Bluff.
Like an acre.
So, I mean, are
If
we
you
gonna-
rode in there, you'd swear this is a business, a big, large warehouse set up there.
And
right
before
in the
you
middle of
get-
the Residential area.
before you get to Hickory Bluff, there's Devonshire,
Yeah.
those particular residents, I'm not sure if they have HOAs, but those particular neighborhoods like that, where there's a lot of residential,
I mean,
your
if
typical build. I
we
would
were
say.
to put restrictions on barn dominiums in those specific areas, that would be like us stepping in as the HOA and putting design standards down and saying, you know what? You can't build X, Y, and Z in this area. If we're gonna classify barn dominiums, then it'd be no different than saying, we're gonna regulate houses with no garages, with 2-story houses, 1-story houses. I mean, you start opening up a can of worms, that's,
A house is a house.
reach out,
A
brother.
warehouse is a warehouse. get that through there.
Yeah,
A house is a house, a warehouse is a warehouse, and that's what was built up there, is a warehouse.
Yeah.
It's not a house.
And anyone that calls our
Does
office,
he living in it like his house?
I don't know if it's
He
in
is.
this or not.
He
I
is.
really don't know.
he's living in it. Anyone that calls our office and inquires, we quickly, show them the building plans, the application,
right.
everything about that particular type of build. We share it with them.
So let me ask you the scenario that Commissioner Brandt's talking about. What would we have in place that to prevent that or to check it?
When they apply for it, they will apply for a single-family home, and then when the building plans are submitted, we will actually be able to see what type of build it is.
Don't we have that now?
Absolutely, we do. Yes.
I think we do. Well, there's nothing that we're gonna do that's gonna enhance.
Now, I think at this time, we do a very good job at regulating these types of builds. I said the potential concern there is it just doesn't look like a regular home. As you can see from some of the pictures.
I don't disagree. I
That's it.
don't disagree with what he's saying. So he built the biggest house in the area out of metal. That looks like a Frito-Lay warehouse.
Yes.
There's certainly things you could do to make some of these look more attractive and have more curb appeal, but then again, it's kind of hard for us to get in and start saying, well, you gotta have some shutters on these two windows over here, and then you need an eyebrow across here, and, you know.
Need some landscape, there's always that snowball effect that then now we're starting to overregulate.
Like I said before, I don't think any of us are against it. Just as long as it meets the criteria and the zoning and everything, then, it's gotta come for a special use permit to change the zoning for it anyway. You always got.
No, you talk about, when you say zoning for the barn dominium,
No, for any structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for anything, not just the barn dominium,
right. So whatever somebody's in whatever zone they're in, they come with their building plans when it's looked at.
That's when it's regulated. At that
And
point,
whether
yes.
he wants to put up a 2,000 red iron building or 4,500 square foot red iron building, he wants to, he got 10 youngins, I don't know.
this one's probably 7,000-8,000 square feet.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah.
The garage doors on it they're at least what,
Industrial,
18 foot high. It's
Commercial.
huge. Yes, it's huge.
it's got a big fishing boat with it.
That he does.
He wants parking in his bedroom.
He wants to look outside, look out his window and see it down there in his garage. I mean, I don't know how we're gonna regulate that kind of stuff.
I
Meet
agree.
zoning criteria, that's the only thing you do.
Yeah.
I think we do a well
Now,
enough job.
let me ask you this. When this particular person came with his plans, what did he give us? Were those rules in effect when he built
Oh,
that?
absolutely, yes. It's just when it was being built, there was concern.
Plans?
Well, there's a long history with this as well, so,
He constantly agitated the neighbors.
Yeah.
What he's gonna do. Oh, I'll show you what I'm gonna do up here. I'll show you what I'm gonna do. He did it, but he did it legally through our zoning and everything.
The issue is not it's not what he built, it's what he's intended to do with what he
Yeah.
built. And so that's where he's trying to come around now after he built it and get a business license, which shouldn't be granted.
right.
90% of the pictures, no, 99% of the pictures you showed up there would fit into most any
It would.
area.
Yes.
It's just,
You build
this
this
is what you
small
like.
warehouse in the middle, and people are opposed to it.
I know back home, people were finding these old barns, the old wooden barns. And going in, and spending a fortune on them. And leaving the exterior, the facade, the exterior, and get on the inside, you think you done walked into a very high-end home. Get on the outside and look like a barn. So,
We keep on keeping on.
Keep us
That's
good.
what all we
I
can do.
don't know that there's anything else I don't see anything else we do because there's a huge ripple effect. We start trying to add some sort of regulation in here, and it's gonna have this ripple effect that you just aren't gonna get away from. And if people are following the zoning and building requirements that we have in place, he's not coming in there operating the business to start with. The fact that he wants to build
an oversized metal building, I don't know that we can regulate that any more than we can regulate. You can't build anything bigger than a 2,500 square foot house, or you can't build anything less than a 3,000 square foot house. So I just, don't think there's anything to gain there. Anybody got anything else they want to add, subtract, or divide by?
Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
You satisfied?
I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
We'll be done. Thank you.
Thank you.